You don't exist. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowed like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look at better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the 6th part of What If Naruto Enters Total Drama Island. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of Pixel's Fanbook on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. A new day comes on Camp Wawanaka and we find ourselves with Naruto, sitting on the stairs leading to the beach from the mess hall, with his guitar and amp as he's busy strumming a melody on his instrument. And while he plays said melody, he hits the wrong note and stops as he lets out a frustrated sigh. Damn it! Naruto yells, frustration in his tone and expression before he starts playing the melody again. The reason why he was doing this and was frustrated by this was he was trying to find a certain sound and he thought that by playing this melody, he'd find it, but as you could see, his mission was not going that smoothly. Naruto strums the melody and feels he's getting close, but he once again hits the wrong note and he lets out a massive groan while throwing his head back. Oh come on! I was right there! He yells, feeling like he'd tear his hair off. What he wasn't aware of was that someone was right behind him and saw his reaction. You seem to be really working HRD on that. This person says, and Naruto turns his head around to see who it is. To his surprise, it was Gwen, who was smiling at him. Hey! The goth greets the rocker who smiles back at him. Hey! Naruto greets as he sets his guitar down to the stairs and stands up and looks at her. What ya doin' here? He asks, curious about why Gwen was here so early in the day. I felt like taking a bit of a morning walk around the camp. Clear my mind and just relax. Gwen says as she steps onto the stairs and sits down as she looks at Naruto. And you? What were you doing there? She asks and Naruto sits back down to the stairs and grabs his guitar. Oh, I was trying to find my sound. Naruto says while resuming his strumming as Gwen raises an eyebrow. Your sound? Gwen asks, wondering what he meant by that. Yeah, my sound. You know how most musicians and artists have their own unique take on the arts. Naruto asks and Gwen nods, knowing what he was talking about since she knew some poets had their unique in saying their poems. Well, I've been trying to find my own for a while now, Anne. He says and Gwen starts to get the idea. You haven't found it from what I saw earlier? Gwen asks and Naruto just turns from her and sheepishly nods. Why yeah, I haven't. Naruto says while Gwen just chuckles a bit. I'm sure you'll find it soon. It's bound to happen. Gwen says, softly punching Naruto's shoulder to assure him he'd find it. She looks around and notices a lack of a certain someone. So, where's Dawn? I was surprised to not see her with you since you two were tied to the hip during the break. She says as she remembers seeing Dawn and him hang out or just be near one another for the past 3 days. Dawn said she wanted to be alone for the morning so she could be one with Mother Gaia, so I let her by. Plus, it gave me the time to try and find my sound. Naruto says while he starts to strum freestyle as Gwen just nods, seeming to be satisfied by his answer. Oh, okay. Gwen says. After a while, the two just remain silent with the sounds of the waves of the lake crashing and Naruto playing his guitar filling the air before the blonde/red hair turns to Gwen. So, how have you been feeling? Since the last challenge? Naruto asks, wanting to know how was she doing after the whole mess of being buried alive and being left there. Gwen sighs and she looks down at the stairs. I've been feeling better. Some of the girls, mainly Lashana, Bridget, Dawn, and even Courtney have been cheering me up. Hell, even some of the guys too, like Owen offered me his lunch yesterday but I told him not to while Duncan asked if I wanted to punch something and I took up his offer on that for a later date. Gwen says, chuckling a little from the memories of everyone trying to help her out, and she did feel grateful about them. And Trent? How have you been dealing with him? Naruto asks, addressing the elephant in the room as Gwen sighs. I've been ignoring him these past few days. He's been trying to apologize and all, but I'm just not ready to face him yet. Gwen says while Naruto nods, understanding her. I sort of get it. You need some time to process your feelings before you can face him. I get that fully. But if you want to talk about it some more, I'm right here for you. Naruto says. Hearing that causes Gwen to smile a little as she looks at him. I'll take you up on that. Thanks, Naruto. Gwen says as Naruto smiles. No problem, Gwen. Naruto says. Attention all campers. Report to the middle of camp to gain your instructions for the next challenge. That guy really knows how to ruin our relaxation time. Gwen says while Naruto nods. Tell me about it. Naruto says as he stands up and disconnects his guitar from his amp before picking up both items. He turns back to Gwen. Wanna walk back together? He asks. Sure. Gwen says before she stands up, and the two make their way to their cabins to get ready for today's challenge. Time skip, 10 minutes later. It was now challenge time. All of the killer bass and screaming gophers, except weirdly enough Beth, were gathered at the beach with Chris in front of them. On the beach were several canoes with half of them being green for the gophers and the other half being red for the bass. Bass, gophers, today's challenge is a true summer camp experience. Chris says as he directs everyone's attention to a map he had on a board that was set next to him. A canoe trip. You'll be paddling your canoes across the lake to Bony Island. The host explains the challenge of the day to everyone before saying the name of the island in a spooky tone, getting many of the campers to raise an eyebrow. When you get there, you must portage your canoes to the other side of the island, which is about a 2-hour hike through treacherous, dense jungle. He says. We gotta pour what? Jeff asks, confused as to what Chris told them to do with their canoes. Portage. Chris corrects Jeff, who's still looking confused due to not knowing what that word meant, while a fly flew through his right ear, and came out the other ear. Dude, walk with your canoe. The host says as Jeff lets out an "oh, now getting it." Chris just shakes his head as he only wonders about his country's future before he resumes explaining the details of the challenge. When you arrive at the other end of the island, you'll build a rescue fire that will be judged by me. The first team to paddle home and return their canoes to the beach is the winner of invincibility. Move, campers, move. He yells and the campers start heading to the canoes on the beach, only to be stopped by Chris as he remembers one last detail. Oh, wait. One more thing I should mention. Legend has it, if you take anything off the island, you'll be cursed forever. The host says, again in his spooky tone as thunder goes off, causing all the campers to look up to the sky and were freaked out by the fact that no cloud in the sky showed it was going to rain. Yeah, baby. A cursed island. Woo. Owen cheers, with enthusiasm. However, no one seemed to share his enthusiasm as. They simply silently stared at the big guy. Now, get in your canoes, and let's have some fun. Chris says as the campers slowly head off, this time with Owen cheering again. Just then a toilet flush was heard and suddenly Beth came into the scene and stopped in front of Chris with some toilet paper attached to her shoe. What did I miss? The braces-wearing girl quickly asks. Canoes. Chris says, pointing in the direction of the beach with Beth quickly taking off. He hopes that the others would explain the rules to her and the curse he said regarding taking things off Bony Island. Confessional, Cody. Chris told us to pick a paddling partner. It was time for me to make my move. Cody explains while his mind was currently focused on impressing a certain goth girl. If I could just get Gwen alone for 5 minutes, I knew I could woo her with my manly charms. End confessional. At the beach, the campers were quickly paired up with each other, such as on the Gophers, Lashana and Izzy, and surprisingly Heather and Owen. Gwen was walking down the stairs to the beach when she stopped to see Trent looking up at her with a smile. The guitarist gestured his eyes to the canoes, silently asking the goth to share a canoe with him. Gwen didn't know what to do, since she still wanted to be away from Trent for a little bit, but the universe would her help on. Come on, Gwen. Gwen hears someone call out to her, and suddenly Cody appears as he puts an arm around her shoulder. You and me, open water. What do you say? The nerd asks. Gwen let out a mental sigh, since as much as she would really not want to be with Trent on a canoe, Cody was pretty much one of the last people she'd want as a partner, given she was aware of the massive crush he seemingly had on her. But seeing as she had no other option since everyone else was with their partner, she sighed and looked at Cody. Sure, why not? Gwen reluctantly says, surprising Cody and Trent. Wait, really? Cody asks, in a surprised tone before he quickly shakes his head before he nods, I mean, sweet. He says, smiling while flashing his gap tooth. Trent sees this and was about to say something, but he is cut off by the sudden appearance of Beth and Lindsay as they surround him. Trent. Lindsay yells as she and Beth surround Trent and grab his arms. You have to come with us. The bombshell says while she starts to pull Trent with her. Trent just turns back to Gwen as he's dragged away. Upon seeing Trent leaving, Gwen let out a sigh before she saw Cody still had his arm over her shoulders. She quickly gets his arm off her and puts Cody in an arm lock, with the geek grunting as a cracking sound was heard. Let's make one thing clear. I'm in charge during the ride. Got it? Gwen says as she narrows her eyes at Cody, who nods. Sure. Cody yells and Gwen releases him and she makes her way to their canoe while Cody just eagerly follows her. Confessional, Cody. Yes. 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 It is so on. Cody cheered as he celebrated by playing an air guitar. Static. Confessional, Gwen. Cody. He's like an annoying brother. A really annoying little brother. Gwen gives her opinion on Cody before sighing. At least it's better than Trent. Static. Confessional, Cody. Cody was still playing his air guitar as he performs a solo. End confessionals. Izzy was trying to push her canoe before she tripped and fell into it. She flips and lands on the canoe, sitting in it with her life jacket suddenly on while Lashana walks up to the canoe. Hey, just follow my technique. I'm 187th Th Cherokee, which would mean the tribe could claim me at any time. Izzy says as Lashana picks up one end of the canoe before she starts pushing it. Let's hope it's today. Lashana mutters, just having a feeling that today was going to be a long day. The base arrive at the beach and make their way to their canoes as Duncan picks Katie and Harold, much to their dismay. Bridget looks around for her paddle partner as she saw Naruto with Dawn and surprisingly Eva as they were putting on their life jackets, pairing up for the journey. She continues to look around before she spots Jeff, heading down the stairs, and looks at her with a smile. She cringes a little as she remembers his little gift he gave her this morning, and her reaction to it wasn't that good. Jeff was hoping to get her to be his paddle partner, and he thought that this would come true as he saw Bridget supposedly smiling and waving back at him. Courtney. Jeff's eyes widen a bit as he sees that it was the CIT herself that Bridget was waving to. Be my partner? Jeff face palmed as Courtney nods and headed over to Bridget. Confessional, Jeff. Man, I thought Bridge and I were tight, but suddenly, I don't know, it's like she's fadin' on me. Jeff says with a sad tone and frown before his mood takes a sudden 180. Nah. It's all good. End confessional. Hey Jeff, need a partner? Walking up to Jeff and patting him on the back was DJ, who the party dude quickly gave a thumbs up to. Excellent. Jeff eagerly says as he follows DJ to the canoe they'd be sharing. As they head over to their canoe, they pass by Bridget and Courtney. Jeff looks at the surfer girl only for Bridget to avert her eyes away from the party dude. When DJ and Jeff reach their canoe, DJ seems to be a bit skittish as he taps the canoe with his foot and Jeff grabs both the life jackets out of the aquatic vehicle. Yo, man. Do canoes flip over a lot? DJ quickly asks as that was something he wanted to know before getting into this thing. No, you're thinking kayaks. Jeff tells DJ, making the brick house breathe a sigh of relief as he catches the life jacket Jeff threw to him. But Jeff wasn't finished unless we hit some rough water. The party dude says while putting on his life jacket. That quickly makes DJ tense up again. Water can get rough? DJ asks in a nervous tone. Oh yeah. Jeff says, speaking as if it wasn't really a big deal for him. Sometimes it can get totally radical out there. He says, and DJ swallows the lump in his throat. Confessional, DJ. When I was 8, my brothers dared me to jump off the high dive platform at the pool. I was scared, but I jumped. I wasn't gonna let them call me chicken. DJ says as he finally gives the story of why he has a fear of water. I landed on my butt. Sounds better than a belly flop, right? Wrong. My trunks went so far up my butt, I had to go to the hospital and get them removed. They invited a new word for what I did. The wedgie flop. I've been afraid of water ever since. The big guy says while shivering a bit, remembering that fateful day from his past. End confessional. DJ holds onto the canoe tightly as Jeff pulls it into the water. The brick house flinches a bit when the canoe shakes as Jeff gets in. Dude, relax. Jeff says to DJ in a calm tone as he hands his friend an oar. We're gonna be fine. He says. If this canoe's a rockin', don't come a knockin'. The two watch as the canoe Owen and Heather were in passes by them, only for Heather to get sick of Owen's antics and club the back of his head with her oar. Ow, that smarts. Soon enough, everyone was in their canoes and was in either pairs of 2 or 3. Chris was on the beach and aiming a gun into the air. On your marks. Chris counts down as he puts his thumb on the trigger and raises the gun. Get set. Bang. Paddle. Chris fires his gun to signal the start of the challenge as all the teams quickly start paddling their canoes in the direction Chris instructed. And as they left, a hawk crashed to the ground from the air in front of Chris, with the host having accidentally shot the animal. That's gonna get me a lawsuit from every animal rights fanatic in the country. Before he could hear Dawn shouting distance. Birdie no. And there's one already on the island. Chris says that he had a feeling he was going to get a lot of emails in the coming days, and a lot of yelling from Dawn later. As the teams were paddling, many of them decided to pass the time with conversation. Over on Gwen's and Cody's canoe, Cody decides to make his move on Gwen. So, do you want to go out sometime? Cody asks, hoping Gwen will agree. No. Gwen instantly declines the offer in a fast response, which did put Cody down a bit, but the nerd wasn't going to give up that easy, especially since they were alone together. How about Friday night? Cody asks, again hoping the goth would say yes. Let me think about it. No. Gwen again declines the offer in a fast response, but once again, Cody was not one to quit. Saturday's good for me. How about Saturday? Cody asks, and Gwen's eye starts to twitch since he was starting to get on her nerves with his pestering. I'm not going out with you, ever, Gwen says, emphasizing her decline with a hand gesture. And Cody puts his hands up. Okay fine, geesh, Cody says, finally getting the message. They continue to paddle for a bit before Cody asks something. So is Sunday out of the question? He got an answer with an or hit right to the coconuts. Confessional, Cody. Okay, maybe she wasn't quite ready for the codster. Cody says as he was still determined to hook up with Gwen. End confessional. Not too far from Gwen and Cody. Izzy and Lashana were paddling along as Izzy was telling a story to the homegirl. And these bushmen taught us how to catch and properly cook crocodiles as well as koala. Izzy tells her story as Lashana cuts her off. Isn't killing a koala bear illegal? Lashana asks since she was well aware of the animal being on the endangered species list, so, if you were to kill one, you're pretty much screwed. Oh, I don't know. Probably yeah. Izzy says as she laughs while Lashana looks at the camera next to them with a concerned expression. A bit further up ahead of them were the trio of Beth, Lindsay, and Trent as Lindsay just stretched a bit before she lay down on the canoe with her head on Trent's lap as she looks up at him. You don't mean if I lay here and work on my tan, do you? Lindsay asks as Trent just smiles and nods. I don't mean one bit. Trent says as he was mesmerized by her beauty and body since she was wearing a different outfit. She had on a red CRP top that did nothing to hide her bosom while she wore a pair of denim jean shorts. Confessional, Lindsay. Heather asked me and Beth to be with Trent so we could try and make Gwen jealous, but I don't think she'd be jealous since I haven't seen Gwen near Trent for a while now. Lindsay says that she remembers how Gwen avoided Trent during the break. Hell, Heather told her to wear something different for this reason. End confessional. In the back, Jeff and DJ were paddling their canoe as Jeff was in deep thought over something. He thought about why Bridget had been acting weird toward him since this morning, and he couldn't think for any reason that could be the problem with this. So, he needed to ask for some advice, and he decides to ask DJ for his thoughts regarding this. Can I ask you something, dude? Jeff asks, getting the brick house's attention. I gave Bridget an awesome gift this morning, but she's been sending me some weird vibes. I thought something seemed off between you two. DJ says while scratching his chin a bit as he couldn't help but notice that there was an odd vibe going on between Bridget and Jeff. What did you give her, man? The brick house asks since he was curious about just what was this gift. I gave her this awesome coin case. Jeff explains what he thought was an awesome gift for Bridget. I used this pic of me and you and did a little editing and got this pic of Bridge. Got it to make it look like I had my arm around her. DJ's eyes widen, and he quickly figures out why Bridget was avoiding Jeff like the plague. You're serious? Jeff grins and nods his head, feeling rather proud of it. I made it in arts and crafts yesterday. What the two didn't know was that Bridget was talking about the gift to Courtney since the CIT had noticed her strange behavior on the beach when Jeff passed them. Oh my gosh, Courtney! Bridget exclaims. It was so bad. He made me this change dish with this really bad photoshopped picture of us on it. Courtney grimaces since she could hear from Bridget's tone, the gift had to be that bad. That's pretty bad, Bridget. She says. And it only gets worse from there. Bridget says as Courtney just sighs, getting a bad feeling about what could be said in a bit. And how is it worse? Courtney asks. He craved something to the back of the case and it wrote, Bridget says as we cut back to Jeff. I hope you think of me when you drop loose change into this. Jeff repeats what he craved in the case as he felt it was romantic. DJ just stares at him for a bit before he face palms and sighs at this while Bridget gags as Courtney also face palms. Jeff finally takes notice of the vibes DJ was sending out and asks. Not good. And DJ just shakes his head. DMN, dude. That is so bad, we need a new word for how bad that is. DJ tells Jeff, making the party dude slump down a bit. Looks like his gift wasn't as good as he thought it was. Or even half that. DJ sees this and decides to give some advice he got from his brothers. Look man, dating's like, The Jamaican stops as he puts a hand to his chin and tries to think of a good example to use to help Jeff out. But just then DJ spots something in front of them and snaps his fingers. Perfect. Okay, so this may seem off topic but I'm gonna go somewhere with this. So it's obvious that Naruto and Dawn got a thing for each other, right? He says as Jeff looks up and sees in front of them, Naruto was telling a story to Dawn and Eva as they paddle. Well duh. Jeff says as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. I think everyone on the island and those watching can see those two click with each other. Well, take a look at them now. DJ says, and Jeff decides to look at them. Did as DJ told him and saw Naruto supposedly telling Dawn and Eva a story as the nature lover and jock were laughing a bit before they gasp at something he said next. See that man? Naruto's just being casual with her. He's been friendly with her since day one. Getting to know her and all that stuff. He's treading slowly and working his way up the tiers into a relationship. DJ says as Jeff looks at him. How many tiers are there? Jeff asks curiously. Just don't do tier 15, man. DJ immediately and firmly tells Jeff that the party dude doesn't understand what he meant by not doing tier 15. So what? Jeff asks as he tries to get exactly what DJ is telling him. I should just try and take things slow with Bridget before I try anything big to show I like her or something. He asks and DJ nods. That's how it works. DJ says as Jeff puts a hand to his chin in thought. So in other words, I messed up. Jeff asks and DJ just crosses his arms in response and nods. You messed up, dude. DJ bluntly says and Jeff sighs. I have a lot of work to do, don't I? Jeff asks and DJ once again nods. Yes, yes you do. DJ says. And you should say sorry to Bridget for the gift you gave her. He says and Jeff just sighs again before he nods. Okay, I'll do it the first chance I get. Jeff says. Sweet man. You got this. I believe in you. DJ says with a smile as he puts his hand on Jeff's shoulder with the party dude smiling back at him. Thanks, dude. Jeff says. Over to the trio of Dawn, Eva, and Naruto, the blonde/red hair was finishing up a story for the two. And to the very day, I've heard he's still traumatized by corn cobs. So much that he breaks out in a panic upon seeing one. Naruto finishes his story with a grin while Dawn and Eva look pale and shocked after hearing his story. You're one evil dude, Naruto. Eva says after a while of silence and Dawn nods. Yes, indeed. Dawn says. Hey, the guy laughed at my sister when she fell and hurt her knee. There was no way I was going to let him leave town before I got revenge. Besides, from what I last heard, the dude got sent to some juvie. So it was a win-win to me. Naruto says. But still, how can you set hair on fire with a pair of dice, a flashlight, some water balloons, and a corn cob? Eva asks, wondering how the logic and actually psychics work on that, and Naruto just shrugs his shoulders. I don't know. Naruto says, feeling like whatever he did was normal while Dawn and Eva just glance at each other. Back in the canoe, Gwen and Cody were sharing. Cody had his head down after multiple attempts to ask Gwen out. He knew the reason why, but he still wanted to try. But seeing he failed, he might as well speak up about it. I think I know why you keep shooting me down. Cody finally spoke up and Gwen didn't seem interested at all that he was saying, so he continued. It's because of Trent, isn't it? He asks and Gwen suddenly jolts into him, that confirms his theory and he feels he has her attention. Look, I'm pretty tight with Trent, he continues, smiling, and I was definitely sensing an I'm into Gwen vibe from him. He says as he doesn't notice her stiffen. Gwen turns around and gave him a wary look. I'll put in a good word for you, if you want. He concludes what he had to say. At that moment, Gwen hesitates. Should she go with Trent? She had been actively avoiding him since the fear challenge and she really wasn't sure about her feelings for him. On one hand, he was pretty laid back and fun to hang with, but on the other hand, so was Naruto, since she found herself loving to hang around him since they clicked with one another, despite their limited interactions. Yet for some other reason, she felt more drawn toward Naruto, maybe it was a gut feeling. But she also knew that Naruto had spent more time with Dawn, so she felt they'd be a couple if things went well. Her mind was totally confused by this since she had no idea what to do. But to Cody's perspective, he took her silence as a yes. Sweet, I'll even help you get in the same boat on the way home. It's the least I can do. He adds. After all, despite his own feelings toward Gwen, he knew she was into Trent and Trent did seem to genuinely be a nice guy. And since I'm helping you with, I could need some help from you. Cody says, trying to start off casually since he had another reason. He didn't want to be mess up on his words. Since I'm in a bit of trouble myself. His statement causes Gwen to turn to him. What do you mean? Gwen finally asks with a raised eyebrow as Cody just rubs the back of his head sheepishly. Well. I kinda bet Owen that if I got your BR, he'd do all my dishes for the rest of the competition. Cody says. Whack. And once more, he receives another blow to the coconuts. Heh, right. Asking too much. Got it. Cody says, holding his pride. He soon notices a fog start to form around him, something that confused him. Hey, was that always earlier? He asks as Gwen looks around the fog and was also confused. No, I don't think so. Gwen says. The teams paddle a bit further as the fog gets denser while they see flocks of birds flying away from something. Spontaneous fog, birds flying away, I'd say we're getting close to this island, Naruto says, seeing the fog around them until he hears Dawn suddenly gasp. He turns and sees she was looking forward with her eyes widened. What's wrong? He asks, noticing Dawn's change in attitude. That island, it's completely covered in darkness. Dawn says in a grim tone as she points forward. Naruto looks forward, and gasps at what he saw. Bony Island. And it wasn't exactly a friendly sight. The eerie fog bordered the island and the rock formations in the front made the part of the island they were paddling to look like there was a giant skull looking down at them. While Naruto couldn't sense things in the way Dawn could, he could safely say something didn't exactly feel right about this island. Well, not exactly an ideal vacation spot. Naruto tries to joke as he and all the other canoes soon reach the shore of the cursed island. Okay. Did you see that skull? Izzy excitedly asks, truly the only camper who wasn't frightened or freaked out by Bony Island one bit. How cool is that? It's like this place is haunted or something. The sound of howling winds and horrible screeches was heard not long after Izzy's declaration. Dawn, is this place haunted? Katie asks while Dawn just looks at the skull rock formation on the island before turning to her with a worried expression. Do you want an honest answer? Dawn hesitantly says, making Katie's eyes widen. Let's just get this over with. Gwen shudders, picking up her canoe alongside Cody as they take off into the jungle. The others soon follow and the two teams run their way through the jungle in the direction Chris pointed out to them on the map this morning. The scenery seemed to only get darker and grimmer as they ran forward. There were skulls all over the place either on the ground or staked on spears. Many trees seemed to be bitten down with the stumps having large teeth marks on them. I don't really like the look of this place, guys. DJ says in a fearful tone with members from both teams nodding in complete agreement. Just then, halting the progress of both the base and gophers, was a large tree falling right in front of them. Everyone flinch and look around to see what caused this and a few spots shaking bushes and some large glowing eyes peeking out. I think I saw something. Cody whispers as the shaking bushes get more violent. Something finally emerged from the bushes and everyone was treated to what looked like beavers, but were the size of bears and had tusks on them. Monster, beavers. Cody yells as nearly everyone screams in terror as the monster beavers all look at them with rather hungry expressions. Confessional, Chris. A remnant of the Pleistocene era, the woolly beaver is a day-active rodent indigenous to Bony Island. Chris explains what the deal was with those monster beavers. Oh yeah, and they're meat eaters. he says before he winks to the camera and laughs. End confessional. Luckily for the base, it seems all the woolly beavers had their eyes only on the screaming gophers as they all scream and proceed to run away as fast as they could. That's good. Courtney whispers to her team with a smile. With those overgrown rodents focused on the gophers we can dash. Suddenly more growling gets the base's attention and they all watch and flinch as more woolly beavers emerge from the bushes and surround the base. Or, not. The CIT squeaks out. Any chance someone has a giant toothpick they can munch on? Harold fearfully gulped. As the prehistoric beavers edged closer to everyone. We could run. For it. Bridget whispers, she and some of the others gulp as they see the woolly beavers start. Or fight our way out. Eva whispers while she was looking around for a large branch to use against the large. Everyone, remain calm and quiet. Dawn speaks up to everyone as she takes her hands off the canoe she, Eva, and Naruto were carrying. Let me speak to them. What? Are you crazy? Do you want to be eaten by these monsters? Courtney yells, not wanting to see one of her teammates be eaten alive. No. Naruto suddenly says, gaining everyone's attention as they turn to him and see he had a serious expression. Let her do it. If she could talk to man-eating sharks, then I have no doubt she can do the same with these beavers. He says as everyone was reminded about her strange skill in speaking to animals. Maybe she could calm down these beavers. Naruto just looks at Dawn and whispers. Be careful. To her and she nods at his words. Dawn turns back to the beavers and takes a deep breath before she slowly approaches the beavers who seem to go on guard as she steps forward. Hey, it's okay. We're not here to invade your land, honest. Dawn says and everyone watches in amazement as Dawn's words actually seem to calm the woolly beavers down a bit as they all go from looking at Dawn like food to looking at her with a curious look. We're just trying to reach the end of the island. We're deeply sorry for disturbing such appealing creatures like yourselves. She says as she smiles. Everyone smiled, and then gasped as the beaver Dawn was in front of stood up on its two hind legs and showed off its full height and grabbed her. Everyone, especially Naruto, who was getting ready to run to Dawn before she was eaten alive, but he didn't have to, as they watched the beaver start licking Dawn like a happy dog, causing her to giggle as the beaver set her down. I'm totally not the only one seeing this, right? Katie asks in a shocked tone as they watch as all the beavers that were previously keen on eating them, start crowding around Dawn and acting like dogs that just had their owner return home. He, that tickles. Dawn laughs as multiple woolly beavers happily lick Dawn to show their affection. Meanwhile, Dawn proceeds to give as many beavers as she can head scratches. "Aw, you're all just a bunch of softies, aren't you?" she says while scratching a few beavers' heads. Confessional, Chris. Man, that girl just takes the fun out of everything. The host said with a small frown on his face. Is it so strong to ask for a bit of screaming and running away action from deadly man-eating animals nowadays? End confessional. Eventually, all the woolly beavers stopped crowding around Dawn and simply sat in front of them with their large tails happily pounding down on the ground. Thank you so much for that, it felt really nice. Dawn says to the prehistoric beavers, making them all make some happy-sounding grunts. Excuse me, if it's not too much trouble, do you think you can lead us to the beach at the end of the island? She asks, and she was delighted to see the woolly beavers all nodded as they gestured their heads for the base to follow them before taking off into the jungle. Alright everyone, let's go. Dawn says as she rejoins Naruto and Eva in holding their canoe. Are we seriously gonna follow a bunch of dino beavers? Courtney asks in a bit of a fearful tone. You got any better ideas? Duncan asks as everyone else decides to follow the beavers and not voice any complaints. Courtney looks to Bridget, who simply shrugs, making the CIT sigh before they decide to follow as well. Have I ever told you how amazing you are? Naruto whispers to Dawn with an impressed grin on his face. Because you are. he says, and Dawn blushes in response. Well, you could say it more often. Dawn jokes with a giggle as they continue to follow the prehistoric beavers to their destination. And thanks to the beavers, the journey was going rather smoothly. Soon they hit a path that split into two directions. The beavers led them to what they said was the right direction. According to Dawn, their beaver-to-human translator. The gophers didn't have it nearly as easy as the base. Without someone like Dawn with them, they resorted to running away from the beavers that tried to attack them. After losing the beavers, they thought got away and were finally alone when they instead walked into a small pond that had a bunch of rather large nests surrounding them, only for a bunch of prehistoric geese to start chasing them. Luckily for them, Cody was actually the one to save them as he brings a loaf of bread with him after revealing he only brought it in order to make him and Gwen a romantic picnic and throws it to the prehistoric birds, which gets them to leave them alone. Eventually, they came across the same splitting pathway the base passed by earlier, and after seeing the base go right, they chose to go left. Things seemed to finally be going well for them as there was nothing in their way to disturb them. At least, that was until Trent suddenly starts to lower into the ground. Whoa. Guys, don't want to panic here, but I'm shrinking. Trent yells to everyone as they all look to see where Trent ends up standing. A pool of quicksand. Confessional, Trent. Right. How am I supposed to know what quicksand looks like? Trent asks with a frown. It looks just like sand. Static. Confessional, Chris. Ha 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 ha. Can you believe they fell for that? Chris says while laughing strong at the fact that Trent actually ended up getting into the quicksand. Huh, I set it up, but I didn't think anyone would walk into it. Huh, that's just great. Ah ha ha ha. End confessional. Oh. Trent lets out as everyone gasps as they watch the guitarist sink further down into the quicksand. Trent's stuck. Lindsay screams as she and Beth set the canoe she, Beth, and Trent were carrying. I'm coming, Trent. The blonde yells as she goes toward Trent in an attempt to rescue him. No, don't. Trent yells, but his words are in vain as Lindsay soon finds herself sinking in the quicksand right next to Trent. I'm stuck too. Lindsay gaps as she looks at her sinking body. I so didn't see that coming. She says, while Trent just facepalms. Help. Somebody, help us. Trent shouts out as he and Lindsay were now neck-deep in the quicksand. Everyone quickly looks around to see if there was anything they could do, only to find nothing. Just then Cody spots something as he lets go of the canoe he and Gwen were carrying, with the goth setting it down on the ground as Cody runs off. Everyone watches as Cody climbs up a tree and grabs onto a vine and uses it to swing down to the quicksand pit to try and grab Trent's hand, only to miss and slam right into a tree. Luckily, the vine comes back over the pit with Trent quickly grabs it and climbs himself and Lindsay out of the quicksand while Lindsay holds on to his leg. The pair lands safely on solid ground and everyone cheers as Cody, who was in a bit of a daze, walks over to the now safe Trent and Lindsay. Whoa. Hey, thanks bro. Trent says up his hand for Cody to high-five only for the still dazed Cody to miss. You're a lifesaver. I am. Cody asks. He shakes his head to get his senses back. Lindsay then came in and hugged Cody. My hero. Lindsay happily says before letting go of Cody. Where did you learn to do that? You know, I watch a lot of movies. Cody says as he sheepishly rubs the back of his neck, making Lindsay giggle a little bit. This is very touching, guys, but we've still got a challenge to win. Gwen yells at everyone, making them all quickly scramble to pick up their canoes again and quickly run forward, while making sure to walk past the quicksand and keep a much closer eye on the ground. With the killer base. The killer base were all making good progress with their hike. The woolly beavers continued leading them to where they needed to go and they were able to avoid most obstacles in their path. For example, not ending up in any quicksand. But all good things must come to an end eventually as Jeff suddenly trips on something and falls strong to the floor. Aha! Jeff screams in pain as he holds his left leg in the air. My leg! I'm down! I'm down! Jeff yells. Everyone, surprisingly including the beavers, stops to check on him. Oh, it's so unfair. Why did this have to happen now? Oh. Why? Why? Jeff! Bridget calls out in concern as she goes to check on him. Some of the others set their canoes down and go to Jeff. Hey man, calm down. Everything's going to be okay, Naruto tells Jeff as he and Dawn check on him. What's wrong with your leg? My leg is itching like crazy. Jeff yells as he starts scratching his leg around to calm it down only to be met with a sudden rush of pain. Never mind. I can feel it now burning. It's starting to hurt so bad. Stop scratching. Let me take a look at it. Dawn tells Jeff as she gently takes his leg to examine it. Jeff winced a bit but tries to keep still as Dawn looks over his leg. The aura reader squints her eyes as she spots something stabbed into Jeff's leg. She turns to Duncan. Duncan, may I please have your knife? I believe I've found the cause of Jeff's injury. She says. Duncan raises an eyebrow at the strange reaction before he shrugs and pulls out his pocket knife and hands it to Dawn. Using the knife, Dawn carefully reaches out to Jeff's legs and ends up pulling a small splinter out of it. A few deadpanned at Jeff, thinking he was just being overdramatic. Dude, seriously? You were freaking out over a splinter? Harold asks but Dawn was looking at the splinter on the knife. Sorry guys. Guess I overreacted. Jeff sheepishly says while rubbing the back of his neck. Yeah, you were. DJ says with a deadpan expression. He moves over to Jeff and holds out his hand to the party dude. Feeling better? He asks and Jeff nod. Why yeah. I'm feeling much better now. The itch stopped. Jeff says as he takes DJ's hand and the big guy helps him up to his feet. Great, now we can continue on our hike. We have to get our fire started before the gophers do. Courtney says. The base nods and they were going to their canoes to pick them up again when Jeff suddenly falls back down again, this time landing on his face. Jeff! Bridget again calls out to her in concern as she goes back to check on him and helps him sit up. What happened? She asks as Jeff looks at his leg. My leg, I can't feel it, I can't feel it. Jeff screams, now shaking his now numb leg. What? How? How did that happen? Katie asks. Wait. Dawn says as she was still looking at the splinter on the knife. She sees something from it before she starts looking around the area. She hums a little while looking for something before she finds what she was looking for. There. She yells as she points toward a bunch of plants, causing her teammates to be confused. What? Courtney asks, confused by what Dawn had pointed toward. They're just a bunch of plants. Specifically, burning nettle, *1. Dawn says as she throws the splinter away into the plant. It's a plant with toxin in its hairs. If it comes into contact with your skin, it will cause a burning and itch sensation that will last for a few minutes, but if you have a large exposure to the hairs, the skin exposed to the hair will cause that part of the body an itching or even a numbing sensation, and that thorn that was in Jeff's leg must have been coated in some of its toxin. Jeff grimly sighs before looking at Dawn. Just give it to me straight, Dawn. Just how long do I have? Jeff asks as Dawn just smiles at him. Oh no, it's not fatal. Dawn says, making Jeff the killer bass sigh in relief. Don't worry, it was just a small thorn so it couldn't have that much sap on it. Your leg should just be numb for about the rest of the day and maybe tomorrow. All you have to do is not move your leg too much and you'll be back to normal in no time. She says while she hands Duncan his knife. Jeff sighs again before shaking his head. No, you dudes should go on without me. Jeff says, looking at his team. I'll only slow you down. Courtney was about to take Jeff up on that offer and walk away only for a growling prehistoric beaver to stop her. We're not leaving any man behind. DJ firmly says. Not on my watch. Here's let me help you man. Naruto says as he proceeds to pick up Jeff and carry him off to the woolly beavers. Any of you mind helping carry him? He asks them and one of the beavers nods as it lowers itself a bit allowing him to put Jeff on the prehistoric beaver's back. Confessional, Jeff. I didn't know if I was gonna make it. Jeff said which was followed by a sharp inhale. It was touch and go. Static. Confessional, Bridget. I've seen surfers get eaten by sharks before, but this? Bridget said with a look of horror on her face. This was horrifying. Static. Confessional, DJ. The man just kept going. DJ said with the utmost respect for Jeff. Riding on a giant beaver or not, the dude's got heart. Static. Confessional, Courtney. It was just a splinter, not like a stick stabbed into your thigh. Courtney says with a deadpan expression, not knowing why was this a big deal. End confessional. The base continue their journey through the jungles of the island before they eventually reach the other side of the island. When they got there, they saw that the gophers had somehow beaten them to the beach. Looks like the path the beavers led the base down was the safer path, it was also the longer one. The gophers waved to the base in a bit of a taunting fashion, only to gasp in horror as they see the gang of woolly beavers with the base. The beaver carrying Jeff carefully slides the party dude off of it onto the sand as Dawn proceeds to give each one a pat on the head. Thank you all so much for your help. We really appreciate it. Dawn thanks them and the beavers respond by giving Dawn a lick before walking away into the woods. Alright, everyone. We gotta get some wood and quick. We're already behind. Courtney yells, quick to take charge as everyone sets down their canoes and gets to hunting wood, while not taking wood from the trees around them at Dawn's request. With Chris monitoring them from a helicopter up above, the two teams quickly try to get a big enough fire going. On the gopher's side, Heather was rubbing two sticks together to try to get a fire going while Lashana was banging rocks together, causing sparks to fly but still no fire ignited. Heather stops her actions as she looks over at the base side of the beach and was surprised as she saw that the base already had a fire going. How'd they do that so quickly? Heather asks and Duncan turns to her as he silently answers her question by pulling out and igniting a lighter he had on him with a smirk on his face. What? Is that even allowed? She shouts while Chris from his helicopter sees the item in Duncan's hand. No rule against carrying lighters. Chris says as a camera goes over to him in his helicopter. Edge, killer base. The two teams continue to search for firewood around the beach as Beth spots something in a bush. She drops her stack of sticks as she finds a wooden tiki head in the bush. Finding it interesting, she picks the tiki up from the bush and places it in her pocket before picking up her sticks and going off to find some more, unaware of the danger she just unleashed. Thanks for saving my butt man. Trent says to Cody as the two are taking a break with Trent lounging on a rock while Cody is standing near him. Just looking out for a fellow gopher. Cody says as he pulls out a can of soda from his pants and cracks it open. Want a sip? He offers the can of soda to Trent who cringes as he sees where that can be previously. And nah, I'm good. Trent declines the offer while pushing the can away from him. Cody just shrugs as he takes a sip from his drink before he looks at Trent. Trent, let's talk. Mano to mano. Cody says and Trent raises an eyebrow. Okay. Trent says. What do you want to talk about? He asks as Cody decides to speak what was on his mind. It's about Gwen. Cody says and Trent's attention is caught fully. Look, I hit on her and I struck out a few times. He says before lowering his head, remembering all his attempts when they were coming to the island. He shakes his head and looks back at Trent. Point is, she's not into me, she's into you. And how sure you are? Since for one, we know she's into someone on the island who plays guitar. There's only me and Naruto who play, and two, she's been avoiding me these last couple of days. Trent says with a sigh, remembering all the failed times he tried to talk to Gwen, only for her to walk away or when someone called out to her before he could. Oh, I'm positive, man. Cody says. I got her to agree to ride with you on the way back home. He says with a grin, but he is taken back when Trent jumps off the rock he was on and glares right into Cody's eyes. If you're lying, I won't have any problem rearranging your face. You know that, right? Trent threatens Cody, who just holds his hands up at him. Dude, buddy. What do I have to gain from lying to you? Cody asks, and after thinking about it, Trent calms down. Okay, if you're telling the truth. I appreciate your help, man. Trent says. So, what should I do? Bro, I got you. If I was you, here's what I would do. Cody says, and as he was about to say what he was about to say, Heather suddenly appears and comes up to them. Ladies, if you're almost done with your tea party. We're in the middle of a challenge here and we're still behind. Heather says, giving the two slackers a firm expression. Alright. Cody and Trent say before they go back in search of wood, while Heather just turns to her left and sees Naruto and Dawn talking happily about something, and she narrows her eyes a bit before she turns and walks back to her fire. The base were taking their pieces of wood to their burning fire as Jeff was seen, dragging himself across the sand, carrying pieces of wood in his hand before he throws his wood into the fire. You shouldn't be straining yourself like this. Dawn said so. Courtney says. I know that, but I can't just sit around and do nothing while my friends are working strong. I got to do something. Jeff yells before he turns himself and resumes dragging his body across the sand. DJ frowns at seeing his friend in such pain. He gains an idea and turns to Bridget. Hey, Bridget. You have first aid training, right? DJ asks and sees Bridget nodding. Why don't you help Jeff? He says. Bridget thought about it for a little bit before she shrugs her shoulders and heads over to Jeff as DJ smiles. Confessional, DJ. Jeff's a good guy. And I own him big time. He helped me get over my fear of water. So when I saw him striking out with the ladies, I had to step in and help a brother out. DJ explains with a smile on his face. Plus, he's someone on my list to help out. Naruto's also one on that list. Need to help him with Dawn since we all see how those two click with one another. Can't let him make the same mistakes as Jeff. He says before he chuckles as he realizes something. Hey mama, look, I'm playing Cupid. End confessional. As Bridget looks over Jeff's leg, the party dude turns to DJ and sends him a smile nod while DJ just discreetly winks at him. The others return with their pieces of wood and toss them into the fire as Courtney sees the flames and frowns. I don't think this is big enough. Courtney says as everyone looks at the fire and sees she was right. Despite the large amount of wood they collected, the fire was still not growing. She's right, y'all. You heard the woman, we need more wood. Let's go. DJ yells and everyone goes back in search of more wood. Harold, in a panic, rushes to his team's canoes and grabs all of their oars before tossing them into their fire as firewood. This shocks everyone in the base. Harold. Naruto yells. He and some of the others rush back to the fire to see if they can grab their oars and save them, but it is too late. The oars were completely engulfed in flames. What the hell did you do? He yells. How are we supposed to get home now? Eva shouts at the nerd, who steps back in fear. Over at the Gopher's side, they were looking at their fire as it was big. They felt it wasn't big enough since they just ran out of wood on their side of the beach. Just then, Izzy walks up to the fire holding something in her hands. This ought to do the trick. Izzy says as she was playing with a goo-like ball with some sticks sticking out of it. What is that? Lashana asks, looking at the goo-like ball Izzy had. It's a homemade fire starter I made out of some tree sap, twigs, and other materials. Izzy says. Stand back guys, this is gonna be big. She says with a smirk, one that tells the others to take several steps back. Izzy throws the DIY fire starter into their fire and boom! An explosion akin to a miniature nuclear one goes off on the beach with the blast sending everyone flying back. The blast radius of the explosion was so large, it reached the height Chris was in his helicopter, forcing the host to move back before he too got blown up. Back on the beach, it looked like a freaking war zone as branches of trees were laying everywhere on the sand, and inside of a deep crater, was a large fire roaring. What in the great Earth Mother is that? Dawn yells as she and most of the others sat up while their ears were ringing from the explosion. Naruto was lying on the sand, groaning from being blown back by the explosion while also something landing on his chest. He lifts his head to see what landed on him and to his surprise, he saw Izzy, who was covered in soot, lying on his chest. Izzy groans and lifts her head off Naruto's chest and she looks at him as the two stare at one another. Hi there. Izzy greets him ever so chirper like she didn't get blown up. Hi. Naruto greets back with a pause. Izzy looks at him and sees his whisker marks and asks a question. Are those whisker marks on your cheek scars or tattoos for like your clan or something? Izzy asks while Naruto blinks a bit. They're not tattoos, they're my birthmarks. Naruto says and Izzy's eyes light up. Really? That's so cool. Izzy yells, ecstatically before she looks at him with a smile. It really makes you look feral like a tiger or a fox. What else is there about you? Naruto utters, really not knowing what to say about that, but he was fortunate as Chris reappears. Woohoo! Chris yells from his choppa, as he grabs a megaphone and uses it. We have our fire building winner. Looks like the Gophers are back in the game after all. Point to them. Oh, well looks like our chat has to wait. Izzy says with a pout. She leaps off Naruto and flips in the air before landing on her feet before she looks down at Naruto. I'll see you later Whiskers. She says with a smile as she waves at him before turning around and walking back to her team while swaying her hips. Naruto sits up and watches her leave as someone walks up beside him. Naruto, dude. You okay? Naruto turns to his side and sees Duncan looking at him with a concerned expression. Naruto looks back at Izzy and slowly gives his teammate a nod. Yeah, I'm fine. Naruto says after a bit as Duncan helps him back to his feet and to their team to regain their bearings and regroup. Izzy arrives at her team while cleaning herself from the soot on her as her team looks at her in a stunned state. Where did you learn to do that? Heather asks as Izzy looks at her. Oh, I spent a summer training with the reserves. I learned a lot from them, but I also got into a lot of trouble there. I blew up the kitchen by accident, which is why the RMCP is still after my butt. I'm totally AWOL right now. Izzy yells as some of her teammates look at her weirdly while Lashana just rolls her eyes, not buying her story. Eventually, the teams get up, dust themselves, and start making their way to their canoes to head back home and complete this challenge. As they were about to board their canoe, Cody decides to commence his plan. You know, since you are still shaken up with the quicksand, we should split up. Cody says to Lindsay and Trent, catching the blonde's attention while Trent realizes what he was doing. How about I go with Lindsay and Beth and Gwen can paddle aback with Trent? Sounds good. Sounds good to me. Trent says as he looks at Gwen with a smile, as he hoped Gwen would agree, but to his surprise, Gwen turns away from him and rubs her arm. Actually, I'd feel better if I could go with Lindsay and Beth. Gwen says as the four were surprised by this. Are really? You sure? Trent asks and Gwen nods. Seeing as he struck out again, he sighs and nods. Okay, guess I'll paddle back with Cody then. He says, and the three girls walk to their cameo to get ready to leave. Once they had left, Trent turns to Cody. Dude, what was that? I thought you said she'd be cool if we rode back. I don't know. I thought she'd be cool with it. Cody says since he really thought Gwen would be into the idea. Well, clearly she wasn't. Man, so much for getting excited. Trent groans as he runs his hand down his face. I'm sorry, Trent. I didn't mean to make things worse for you. Cody says, and Trent just sighs. It's fine, come on, let's go and get ready. Trent says while he walks to their canoe. With the base, they were by their canoes with their life jackets on, but they still had one massive issue at hand. What are we going to do without paddles? Bridget asks as she and some of the others glare at Harold, who flinches at the glares. You guys could get someone to swim behind the boats and push them. Suddenly Izzy, someone from the opposing team, speaks up to the base as they look at her. I did that once for this huge 60-foot yacht. The whole crew had to flutter kick for 8 days to get to shore. And 4 of us got eaten by sharks. I didn't, hee, not me. But it was insane. Okay, later. Suddenly Lashana aggressively paddled forward to shut Izzy up as the red hair falls on the cameo. After hearing her idea, the base thought about it and felt it was their best bet. That might work. Jeff says with a smile while he was on Naruto's back. If someone strong enough could swim fast enough, they might just be able to barely make it in first. We need someone big enough to push all the canoes back. Bridget says as she puts a hand to her chin in thought before she smiles and looks at the two strongest of the base. The Jamaican brick house, and their resident strong woman. DJ, Eva. You two are our strongest here, you guys got to do it. Okay. Eva says, shrugging her shoulders as she processes to take off her shoes for the swim, but DJ flinches a bit as Jeff speaks. You can't ask him to do that. Jeff says, knowing about DJ's fear of water. The dude can't swim. Jeff, I know you two are friends, he's mine too, but it's either him or two of us others to help Eva, but we could get tired before we make it. Naruto says as he walks over to DJ and puts his hand on the brick house's shoulder. It has to be him or we're screwed. He says, and Courtney nods. He's right. He and Duncan might do it, but they'd be too slow. Courtney says as she grabs Harold's arms and points at them, and these skinny arms aren't going to cut it. I'll do it. Jeff says as he was about to get off Naruto's back, only for Dawn to stop him. Remember what I said, Jeff. Dawn says, reminding the party dude of her orders earlier. You have to let your leg take it easy in order for your body to completely heal from the nettle's toxin. I can do this. Everyone looks to DJ as he spoke in a completely serious tone. I have to. You sure, dude? Naruto asks and DJ just gives him a shaky nod. Confessional, DJ. It was all up to me. DJ says to the audience at home with a determined look on his face. I needed to swim like a killer base should, and no wedgie flop was going to stand in my way. End confessional. That is one brave man. Jeff says while pointing at DJ. The party dude's respect for the brick house was at an all-time high at seeing DJ willing to put his fears aside to help his team once again. You're a good man, DJ. You have my respect. Naruto says, with his respect to the brick house going higher than before. Alright. Duncan, Dawn, Bridget. Help me stack the canoes onto each other and let's get ready. He says as he sets Jeff down, and they get to work in stacking all the canoes on top of one another before they all climb onto the top one. Eva and DJ put their shoes into the canoe with the others and nodded to each other before they pushed the canoes and teammates into the water and began pushing. As it turned out, this was probably faster than using oars, with DJ and Eva pushing them forward. The base were able to easily catch up to the screaming gophers. In fact, they didn't just catch up. They passed them. All the base were cheering DJ's and Eva's names. Back on Total Drama Island, Chris was waiting for the teams to arrive as he spots something tall coming fast. He sees it was the base and he takes a step back, as he sees where they were heading. Apparently, due to everyone cheering on DJ and Eva and the two not seemingly knowing when or how to stop, they had no idea they were heading straight to a large rock. And when they reached the beach, they proceed to fly off the rock like a ramp, fly over Chris, and crash on the other side of the beach. But hey, they were still the first team on the beach. The base are the winners. Chris announces, leading to the base to cheer for the victory. As the Gophers arrive at the beach and see they have once again lost a challenge, Lashana gets off her canoe and glares at Izzy. "You cost us the game. You are dead." Lashana yells at Izzy, who gets out of the canoe and looks at the homegirl. "Okay, you are so lucky my license to kill is currently expired." Izzy says, and Lashana had enough as she grabs one of their oars, and this causes Izzy to run while she gives chase. "And stop with all the SHT you're saying." Lashana yells, "SWNGNG the oar" at Izzy as they run past the base. "I hope she doesn't kill Izzy with that," Naruto says while chuckling a little bit. Dawn suddenly appears next to Naruto with her hand on her chin as she hums while feeling something from the Gophers. "Something doesn't seem right," Dawn says as she looks at the Gophers. "What? What's wrong?" Naruto asks the aura reader with a raised brow. "It's the Gophers," Dawn explains to the blonde/red hair while she frowns. "I feel a dark presence around them. Like the one from Bony Island." It's probably just Heather," Naruto says as he jokes/shrugs before he turns to Dawn. "Although I think it's a safe bet that Izzy's the one going home tonight," he says, and Dawn simply hums in response before she and Lincoln walk off to go and celebrate with their team. Later that night. Location, the dramatic bonfire ceremony. Once again, night fell upon Camp Wawanakwa and the dramatic bonfire ceremony was taking place, with the screaming Gophers once again on the chopping block to send one of them home, where tonight the sixth camper would be leaving Total Drama Island forever. And now, the always anxiety-inducing marshmallow ceremony. Chris says while holding a plate of 8 marshmallows. "When I call your name, come and get a marshmallow. Beth. Trent. Gwen." The 3 campers smile and went to go get their marshmallows, with Trent looking at Gwen, who just passes him, grabs her marshmallow, and walks away, causing him to frown as he goes and grabs his. Cody. Owen. Heather. Lashana. The 4 all go and grab their marshmallows before heading back to their stumps, minus Gwen, who left as there were 2 campers yet only 1 marshmallow. Izzy and Lindsay. "One last marshmallow," Chris says with a grin as he tosses the marshmallow up and down in his hand. "The person who doesn't get this marshmallow will walk off the dock of shame and take a ride on the boat of losers." "Who's it gonna be?" he asks with a grin to get the 2 remaining campers' nerves up. But before Chris could name the camper that was staying, a helicopter was heard and everyone looks up to see one flying above them with a searchlight shining down from it and onto Izzy. "Izzy!" a voice calls out from within the helicopter. "We know you are down there. You are under arrest." "You mean all that trash you were talking was true?" Lashana asks with a surprised look and tone as she remembers all of Izzy's crazy stories she told during the challenge, including one where she was wanted by the RCMP for blowing up their kitchen. "No. Just the RCMP part. See ya," Izzy says before standing up and points up at the helicopter. "You'll never get me alive," she shouts as everyone then watches as she manically laughs before quickly running away with the helicopter in hot pursuit of her. "Well, that wraps that up," Chris says after a little as he sees the helicopter chase Izzy, as everyone watches the scene with shocked looks. "Night everyone." At the base cabin, the team hears the blades of a helicopter which also shakes the building a little bit as they go outside and see Izzy running while a helicopter, with a searchlight shining down from it and onto her, chasing after her. What the? Duncan yells, in disbelief at what was going on while Naruto was looking at the copter. Hey, Whiskers. Naruto hears and sees Izzy waving at Naruto with a smile, I'll see you later. She shouts as she runs into the forest as the helicopter flies above the forest, chasing after her. The base were in shock as they didn't know what happened in the bonfire ceremony for something like this to happen. Some decide to go back into their cabins to go and sleep this off and forget about it while some go out to go to the Gophers to go and ask what happened during the ceremony. What just happened? Naruto utters after a while, confused by what just happened. He decides he should get some sleep since Gwen had asked him if he wanted to hang out with him tomorrow to help him find his sound and he agreed. Inside the girls' cabin of the base, Bridget goes to her bed and finds a certain gift on the floor, completely shattered. Oh man. Bridget says as she crouches down to the floor and sees Jeff's gift was in pieces. She looks over to Courtney who was getting ready for bed. Go any glue? She asks and Courtney just laughs. I wouldn't waste my time fixing that. Courtney says while she looks at the gift. Bridget picks up the pieces and looks at them before she smiles. Maybe I would. Bridget says as she goes over to the cardboard to place the pieces safely so she could begin fixing the gift tomorrow. Over at the Gopher's cabin, in the girls' cabin. Beth was on her bunk, reading a magazine she borrowed from Lindsay, with the wooden tiki head she took from Bony Island, unaware that the tiki head was emitting an aura around her and the rest of her team, an aura that would change the game soon. It had been a few days since the whole Izzy RCMP incident at the campfire ceremony and it was another peaceful morning on Camp Wawanika as the campers were peacefully asleep in their respective cabins, dreaming of various things. Unfortunately, this peace was rudely interrupted by the sounds of helicopter blades flying over the island. It was Chris piloting the helicopter with a smirk as he flew over the cabins, waking and startling the campers as Duncan jolted up from his bed and looked around, thinking he was back in juvie in his mind. Oh! Hit the deck! They're coming, man! They found us! Duncan frantically yells as he leaps out of his bunk bed, drops to the floor, and hides under Jeff's and DJ's bunk bed, waking the two occupants on it while Naruto and Harold wake up from all the commotion, confused by it. From inside the Gopher cabin, Lashana's head shoots up from her bed and hits the top bunk. Ow! Lashana grunts before she gets frustrated by Chris's antics. Okay, that dude is starting to get on my last nerve. She yells, while as she rubs her head. Whatever. Heather yawns as she starts to get up from her bed. He just loves ruining our mornings. Beth, Lindsay, go warm up the shower for me. She says. Beth and Lindsay, still feeling sleepy, looked at each other in silence only for Heather to order. Now. They both flinch at this before getting up from their bed. And remember. Not too hot this time I know. Beth groans tiredly with a bit of irritation in her voice. This wasn't the first time Heather had ordered her and Lindsay to go and heat the shower for her. Later at the washrooms, all the girls from both teams except for Dawn and Heather were all trying to hold in their pee as they all waited in line for the bathroom. All while hearing the shower going, indicating someone was still inside, bathing. What's the hold-up? Bridget yells from the middle of the line. Heather needs her private time. Lindsay says with a strained voice. It was Heather who was inside the shower. And just how long's Queenie gonna be in there? Lashana asks, glaring at the washroom door, wishing she'd go inside the washroom and tear Heather a new one for making her and all the other girls wait. I got urgent business. She could still be a while. Beth tells her teammate. Ugh. That's it. Gwen grunts as she ditches and lines start heading towards the woods. I'm going lumberjack style. She says, but before she could get far, all the girls cringe a bit as feedback from the loudspeaker catches all of their attention. I hope you're ready for the most challenging challenge yet. Chris announces to everyone. Some of the boys were in their cabins, getting ready for the day, were listening to the announcement. Breakfast in 3 minutes at the campfire pit. After hearing this, the rest of the girls sans Lindsay and Beth decide to follow Gwen's lead and go do their business in the woods. Beth knocks on the washroom door to get Heather's attention and informs her of the time limit, only for the leader of their alliance to say, "Can one of you come in here and lotion my back? I got sunburnt and it's peeling." Both Lindsay and Beth cringe at this, with the bombshell blonde wisely backing away quietly into the woods to go and do her business. When Beth turns around to where Lindsay was to see if she can get the blonde's help with this, only to see no one, and Beth realizes she was forced to tread to the disgusting task by herself. Time skip, 3 minutes later. Location, campfire pit. A little over 3 minutes afterward, both teams were seen gathered up by the campfire pit, with the host of the show standing in front of all of the contestants. "Are you ready for today's Extreme Max Impact Challenge?" Chris yells to everyone, really hyping up the challenge for today. "We are ready." Owen cheers while raising his arms, while Lashana just looks at him and shakes her head. "Incoming." Chris yells as he holds up an item in hand and throws it at the campers, as the item is shown to be a can of baked beans. The can was soaring straight at Gwen, and she flinched in seeing the can coming and realized she had no time to react, so she turned her head and braced herself for the hit when Trent came to the rescue and caught the can before it could hit her. Gwen opens her eyes and sees Trent holding the can in his hand as he looks at her with a smile, but she frowns and turns to the other direction, missing the guitarist's confused frown. Chris then brings out a box filled with baked bean cans and proceeds to throw the cans to the other campers. "This is breakfast." "No." Heather says with disgust as she looks at the can. "Breakfast is crepes, croissants, even chef's crappy burnt eggs." "Beans, they're good for your heart, the more you eat, the more you dash," Owen happily sings before Heather throws her can at the big guy's face, causing him to drop to the ground. "Today's challenge is about survival," Chris explains before pulling out something from behind his back. "A paintball gun. We're going hunting." "What?" Dawn gasps in horror. "Now that's more like it," Duncan says with an eager smirk. "Isn't that a paintball gun?" Harold asks as he points to the green gun in Chris's hands. "Why yes, Harold," Chris says as he aims the paintball gun at Harold and shoots the ginger with it in the gut, causing the ginger to drop to the ground and hold his stomach while gasping for air. "It is. So we won't be killing anything?" Bridget asks with crossed arms. Concerned about hunting poor animals as she was an animal lover, the same was said for DJ. Negatory. Chris confirms, making Bridget smile, and Dawn breathes a sigh of relief as Naruto puts a reassuring hand on her shoulder. The gesture makes Dawn blush a bit. "This is the first ever paintball deer hunt. I'll announce the teams once we get into the woods. So, finish breaky." Just then a loud burp gets everyone's attention and makes them all look to Owen, who already had a bunch of emptied cans around him with beans staining his body. Owen lets a sigh out in satisfaction before turning to the host. "Got any more?" Time skip, 45 minutes later. Location, near the woods. Time passes and the teams were all gathered up near the woods, with Chris having a trunk next to him as well as a rack with red and green paintball guns set up on it. "And now for the team breakdowns," Chris announces as he takes out the red paintball guns off the rack. The killer base hunters are Bridget, Jeff, Harold, Naruto, and Katie. Locked and loaded with base blue paint. With Duncan, Courtney, DJ, Eva, and Dawn acting as the deer for the base, Chris then threw the 4 guns to the hunters for the base. Naruto in particular has a big grin on his face as he catches his gun, inspects it, and opens up the compartment holding the paintballs and sees he has limited rounds in it and assumes the others had the same amount. "And using orange paint are the gopher hunters," Chris says as he grabs the green guns off the rack. Lashana, Beth, Owen, and Lindsay. While Heather, Gwen, Trent, and Cody are the deer. He says, throwing the guns at the gophers. Wahoo! Owen cheers as he and the 3 other gopher hunters catch their guns. This is awesome, man. You also get these steel-and glasses and wicked camo caps. Chris says as he reaches into the trunk and pulls out said items and throws the items at the hunters so they could put them on. And you deer, you'll be wearing these adorable and noticeable antlers, noses, and little whitetails. He says as he pulls out a headband with deer antlers attached, red deer noses, and belts with a little deer tail attached. Dawn claps and eagerly goes to go get her deer costume with the other deer from both teams looking less than happy at their wardrobe. Yeah, right. Heather says, rolling her eyes and crossing her arms. I am not wearing that. There is no way I'm a deer. Duncan says, glaring at the gear. He should have been a hunter, not a freaking deer. Yeah, I'm not going around dressed as a freaking deer. Eva growls in protest. She was thinking of not even wearing the deer gear during the challenge, and as if he was reading her mind, Chris spoke. Refusal to wear or taking these off and your team is toast. Chris says as he processes to put the deer gear on Duncan and Eva. On the bright side, they also got the shades the hunters got. Chuckling was then heard from behind Duncan with the delinquent looking to see Owen grinning at him from behind. What are you looking at? He asks. Oh, nothing. Owen says, continuing to grin at Duncan with narrow eyes on the delinquent's tail. Bambi. He says as he then grabs Duncan's tail and pulls it back and proceeds to snap it by letting it go. This causes the delinquent to get angry and turn to Owen with a glare. You better be a good shot, Tubby. Duncan threatens the big guy. Confessional, Dawn. I don't know why everyone's complaining about. Dawn says with a smile as she proudly wears her deer gear. These are great. I truly feel one with nature's appealing creatures like this. End confessional. Dawn was busy adjusting her tail as Naruto, who was busy putting his cap backward, noticed her and stared at her with wide eyes. Wow. Naruto lets out and Dawn hears him as she turns and sees him staring at her. What? Dawn asks and the blonde/red-haired snaps out of his thought and sheepishly grins. And nothing really. Naruto stutters as he scratches his cheek with his fingers while a small dust of pink starts to appear across his cheeks. It's just, you look really cute with that deer stuff on is all. He says, looking away from Dawn while the aura reader looks at him with a blush on her face as she shyly looks down and smiles. Oh, thank you. Dawn stutters, feeling happy that her crush liked how she looked in her deer outfit. Confessional, Dawn. Dawn excitedly squeals while holding her hands to her blushing face. Static. Confessional, Naruto. Wow. Naruto says while looking at the ceiling of the outhouse with his chin rested on his hand. That deer outfit really suits Dawn. She looks cute in it. End confessional. Time skip, 5 minutes later. Killer base deer. The deer of the killer base. Team, Dawn, DJ, Duncan, Courtney, and Eva, were now all seen walking through the woods. Chris told them the deer they had a 15-minute head start to get into the woods and hide. And that's what they were currently doing as they traversed through the forest for spots to hide. At least we get a head start. Courtney sighs out as she along with Duncan and Eva weren't too thrilled about being deer for this game. So, what should we do? Eva asks, looking at her fellow deer. Should we split up or stay grouped? She asks and before anyone could say anything, DJ spoke. I don't know about y'all, but I'm outta here. DJ says as he does something that surprises nearly everyone on his team. The brick house got down on all fours and started prancing away just like a real deer would into the opposite direction and prances into a part of the forest. Duncan and Courtney's jaws drop at the sight with Eva's eyes widening. And Dawn. He's really in tune with nature. Dawn compliments as she smiles at DJ releasing his inner deer. The aura reader then turns to her teammates. I think I should be heading off too. I need to go meet up with some friends of mine. She says, and similar to DJ, Dawn proceeds to get on all fours, and instead of prancing, she simply walks away into the woods like a deer would, leaving the 3 remaining base deer standing there in shock. Why are all the tree huggers on our team again? Courtney asks no one in particular after getting over her shock. Screaming gophers deer. Currently, the gopher deer, Heather, Cody, Gwen, and Trent, were also walking through the woods and making the most of their head start, as all of them, except for Cody, weren't not too happy about the whole being deer thing. This is easily the lamest thing I've ever done in my life. Gwen complains, not just about the whole being a deer thing, but also being stuck with Trent. Ah, come on. Cody says with a smile, he was trying to encourage everyone and bring spirits up. It could be fun. However, the only thing the brown-haired boy got in return were glares from his fellow deer. Okay, catch you later, he says as he turns the other way and process in running into the forest. Confession, Cody. I was so psyched to be a deer. Cody says, looking at the camera with a grin, while he had some bandages on his right arm, had bruises and claw marks on his face with a black eye on his left eye, his clothes were torn in several places, and was also wet for some reason. I'm small, but I'm quick. Lots of practice from dodging spitballs in math class. They can help a guy out in dodging. End confessional. After Cody separated from the group, they were about to continue traversing through the forest as Gwen stopped when she saw Heather sitting down on a stump and start filing her nails. Are you coming? Gwen asks with a raised brow. No. Heather says, rolling her eyes as she continues filing. I'm going to wait for Lindsay and Beth and make them protect me for the whole game. She says as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. Wouldn't that be against the rules? Gwen asks with a raised brow. She couldn't care less if Heather followed them or not, hell she would prefer it if she didn't, but she didn't want the mean girl's attitude to cost them the challenge. Do you see a rules person anywhere? Heather asks annoyedly as she gestured to the area around her. Worry about your own fluffy tails. The mean girl says, annoying Gwen with her attitude. You know what, whatever. Got shot by the other team, I don't care. I'm out of here. Gwen hisses as she turns and processes to walk in a direction into the forest, leaving her team. Hey, Gwen. Wait up. Trent yells, he runs after Gwen to keep her company while also maybe having a conversation with her. Time skip, 9 minutes later. Killer base, hunters. And break. Harold yells as he, Jeff, and Naruto grin as they bring their hands together before raising them in the air. Bridget did too but didn't look as enthusiastic as the 3 boys. Putting on their glasses, Harold looks at Bridget, seeing she was looking at her paintball gun with a frown, and he realizes that she must be feeling uncomfortable with shooting a living being, due to her pacifist nature. He decides to go and talk to her about it. Okay. You do realize that this is all just pretend, right? And that it's just paint. Meaning we're not going to hunt and kill real deer, only the other team. Harold explains to Bridget. He sees she wasn't thrilled about the idea until he thought of something that might get her into the idea. So say, if you, hit Heather, you won't get into trouble. He finishes with a grin and this catches Bridget's attention. Wait. Heather's a deer. Bridget's mood took an instant 180 as she saw the boys grin and nod. She grins as well before putting on her glasses and holding her gun with her thumb eagerly on the trigger. Ho ho ho. She was so going to enjoy this. Just know you're not the only one who wants to get a hit on her. Naruto states as he twirls his gun around before putting it down. Hey, would it be cool if I went on my own and did my own thing? He asks and the others just shrug their shoulders, feeling not too bothered by the idea. Go ahead man. Jeff says. Probably best to cover more ground that way. Naruto grins eagerly as he takes off his hoodie and ties it around his torso, making it into a makeshift gun hoister before he places his gun onto his back. The announce system turns on, grabbing the hunter's attention. Start your paintballs. The host tells everyone as he was about to give the hunters the go-ahead to start hunting their fellow campers. Game on. Alright. Beth cheers as she raises her gun in the air. Let's go bag some deer. Aha. I am down with that. Lashana excitedly agrees with Beth, as they and Lindsay watch Owen open a jar with some yellow liquid inside of it before he splashes it onto himself. What are you doing? Lindsay asks with a confused tone. Masking my scent so the deer don't smell me coming. Owen says as he prepares to go into full Bear Grylls mode. Beth and Lashana cringe in disgust, as they both quickly figure out just what Owen had done exactly while Lindsay still looks confused. Tell me that isn't. P. Owen finishes Lashana's sentence with a nod of his head. Yes. Yes, it is. Ew. Beth and Lindsay yell in unison, disgusted by Owen's actions while Lashana feels like throwing up. I've got some more if you need some. Owen offers, holding the jar with some of his pee still inside. We're hunting other campers. Beth says while backing away from the big guy. You don't have to hide your scent. You mean I collected all this pee for nothing? Owen complains, looking at the jar of collected pee with a frown before throwing it away, and Beth and Lindsay run away screaming so it doesn't hit them as the jar falls and breaks where Lindsay stood moments ago. Lashana looks at Owen and shakes her head. Dude. You are one sick ticket. Lashana says before grabbing her gun and walking off into the forest. The base watched this and cringed a bit before walking into the woods themselves. Harold, Bridget, and Jeff were sticking together while Naruto runs to a tree and climbs it before disappearing in the branches. Owen was the only one remaining as he saw everyone had left before he grabbed his gun and ran into the forest to hunt some deer. The Alliance, Beth and Lindsay. With Beth and Lindsay, the two gopher hunters were looking rather tired as they walked through the woods. So far, their hunt was rather uneventful as they have yet to even see a deer, let alone shoot one. Ah, man. Beth grunts as she looks around the area she and the blonde bombshell were at, before recognizing the area they were in. We're back to where we started and we haven't seen one deer. Ahem. The sound of someone aggressively clearing their throat catches the two girls' attention as they look to see Heather sitting on a stump and glaring at them. What took you so long? Heather asks, crossing her arms as she continues glaring at them. Were we supposed to come find you? Beth asks the mean girl with a confused tone. Since when did she ever say they had to go and find her? Hello. Heather says as if the situation was obvious. Especially to her two Alliance members who she bosses around. Alliance, anyone? Boo. Boo. Lindsay excitedly raises her hand. Can I be in one? You already are, Lindsay. That's the point. Heather yells at the dumb blonde as she wasn't in the mood to deal with any of Lindsay's airheadness, while the blonde drops her hand and frowns at Heather. Now go find me some berries. I'm starving. Shouldn't we be, hunting? Beth speaks up to Heather, thinking that it would just be a waste of time during a challenge like this just to go find the queen bee food when they should be out hunting the other team's deer. Yes, you are hunting. For me. Heather informs Beth before putting a finger to her chin in thought. But actually, berries won't be enough. She says, realizing she needed more food. She looks at the two. Beth, you go get me some berries while Lindsay, you go and get me some chips. In the forest? Lindsay asks, very confused at Heather's request. No. In the dining hall. Now. Heather ordered as she pointed in the direction of the camp. Lindsay wanted to argue that she didn't want to, but she knew Heather wouldn't listen and just order her again. She sighs before ultimately going along with it and starts walking back towards the camp in a slump. And not barbecue. The mean girl orders, making sure that the blonde while Beth just looks at her friend with pity before Heather barks at her to go find the berries and she goes looking for some with a slump of her own. Confessional, Beth. Okay, Heather can be so bossy. Beth rants out angrily as she's had it up to here with Heather and her attitude. And in nature, hunters would never go find food for the deer, it's the deer is the food for the deer. Oh, what I would do if I could just, Heather won't hear this, right? She asks, looking at the camera, hoping that this part would be cut, yeah right. End confessional. Meanwhile with the hunter. The hunter is a finely tuned machine. His senses heightened by the thrill of the chase. Owen was narrating to himself and the audience as he was currently putting his focus to the max. He looks around for signs of any base members wearing antlers and tails. Sniffing the air, Owen spots something nearby and quietly tiptoes over to it. Hiding behind a large enough bush, Owen peeks and sees DJ, still embracing his inner deer as shown by the teen, who was munching on some grass. Suddenly, our hunter spots a magnificent buck in the clearing. He says before going into a bush and looking at DJ through it. If he's to succeed, the hunter must demonstrate patience and control. He whispers before raising his paintball gun and taking the safety off before he starts to quietly walk over to DJ to shoot him. But, just as Owen was about to take his second step, he starts to fart. Both Owen and DJ's eyes widened at this as DJ quickly looked around to see where the source of the noise was coming from. Owen manages to stop his fart and hold it long enough for DJ to simply forget about it and start munching on grass again as a bird proceeds to perch atop his antler hat. Owen decides to go for the waiting game, waiting for his target to make a mistake and for him to capitalize on it. Location, Mess Hall, Camp Wawanika. With Lindsay. Lindsay was terrified, as she was hiding under a table outside of the mess hall. Now, you might be asking yourselves, why hasn't she gone into the mess hall and grabbed the chip Heather ordered from her? The answer was simple, it was Chef. He was the biggest obstacle in her mission for the chips as she knew how much Chef hated people in his kitchen without his permission. Hell, he once threw a knife at Owen one night when the big guy tried to break into the kitchen for a late-night snack and Chef chased him out of the hall after throwing the knife. She knew Chef would turn her into minced dinner if he were to catch her, so she decided to simply wait for him to leave the mess hall. He had to take a break at some point and leave the hall for it, right? So, that's what she's been doing for the past 15 minutes, she's been waiting for him to exit the hall so she could go in and look for those chips. And, a little bit later, her patience pays off as Chef emerges from the hall, in his swimming trunks and an orange floaty around his waist. Chef whistles as he walks down the stairs of the hall and starts heading to the dock for a little swim. He passes the table Lindsay was hiding under as she sighs in relief before she processes to stand up, but she hits her head onto the table, causing her grunt from the pain before she quickly shuts her mouth with her hand as she hoped her grunt of pain didn't alert Chef. She sees Chef stop and look around for her before he shrugs his shoulders and resumes walking to the dock. Once she saw the coast was clear, she made her move and headed into the mess hall to look for any bag of chip. Back with the hunter. Owen continued to silently watch DJ in the bush, just waiting for the moment to strike and shoot his unsuspecting prey. The hunter moves in, aware of every proton in his environment. Owen starts quietly narrating again as he lifts his gun, preparing to shoot the base deer in front of him, only for a large snake to slither onto the big guy, making him stand up from his hiding place in a panic. Ah, CRP, snake. He yells as he grabs the snake and throws it away from him. Needless to say, DJ notices this and quickly starts to run away like a deer would. Seeing his prey running, Owen grins and grips his gun. Ha! It's on, DJ. Owen yells before he starts chasing after the brick house. Your butt's a hamburger and I'm one hot barbecue. And chase he did. No matter what came his way, Owen refused to let up on DJ. The big guy never took his eyes off the brick house and tried to take shot after shot of him with DJ managing to avoid the hits so far. "You're my burger now, DJ." Owen yells while panting. And like a true hunter, Owen refused to let up on his hunt for DJ. Even after hitting his kiwis against a rock, being led through a bunch of thorn bushes, getting chased by a bunch of raccoons and finally getting hit in the face by low-hanging tree branches, Owen refuses to let up on DJ and continues to chase after him and continues shooting at him and unfortunately missing all of his shots. But things seem to be looking up for Owen. Quite literally. His luck finally starts coming in handy as he manages to chase DJ up the 1,000-foot cliff the campers all went up for their first challenge. DJ was chased to the edge of the cliff with nowhere left to run. Beads of sweat trail down DJ's head as Owen appears right in front of him, panting. "You're mine now, dear," Owen says as he looks right into DJ's eyes and aims his paintball gun right at him. DJ closes his eyes as Owen puts his thumb to the trigger. And pulls it, and nothing happens. Confused by this, Owen continues to pull the trigger, only for clicking sounds to come from the gun. Owen's eyes widen as he comes to a horrifying conclusion as to why his gun was clicking. He used all his limited rounds during the chase and was now empty. He starts to get nervous as he watches DJ's nervous look turn into a glare after the base deer comes to the same conclusion. The hunter knows that his prey will stay there for a moment, paralyzed in, fear? Owen says in his narration, but DJ doesn't do anything. Owen says as the brick house stands up and starts stomping toward Owen. And respect? The deer cannot best the hunter. Owen continues to narrate nervously as DJ stomps right up to him and looks down at Owen as the big guy nervously laughs and tries to back away from DJ. "Hey, dude. Come on now. Let's talk about this," he suggests, but DJ wasn't having any of that. Instead, DJ just picks up Owen and throws him down the cliff, with the big guy screaming down before crashing into the water below with a resounding bang as DJ smiles and happily starts running down the cliff, back in his inner deer mood. Ahahaha. Oh, man. I didn't think DJ had it in him. Chris laughs while wiping a tear of laughter from his eye. Currently, the host was sticking around at the campgrounds and had a TV set up so he could watch everything that was going on with the challenge. With Lashana. An hour of sneaking around in the woods and I haven't shot a DMN thing. Lashana groans, feeling exhausted from all the walking she had done. The girl was currently facing a problem a few of the hunters from both teams were having. She was struggling to find any of the deer campers. What kind of messed up person actually does this for fun? The girl with a tude says, wiping off the sweat from her forehead. Rustle. Lashana stops walking as she hears rustling coming from nearby. Quietly tiptoeing to where the rustling came from, Lashana peeks from a tree she hid behind to see what was the cause of the rustling, and the gopher hunter's eyes widen as she sees none other than base deer Dawn walking through the woods on all fours and mimicking an actual deer. What is that white girl doing? Lashana whispers as she carefully watches Dawn and makes sure not to make any loud noises that could alert the deer. Welp, ain't my business, that's for sure. Time to finally get one in. She whispers while shrugging her shoulders. Lashana then aims her gun at Dawn and was about to shoot, only for the aura reader to suddenly gasp and get on her two legs before she starts to run away. She may not have seen Lashana, but she was able to sense her and realize she was there. What? Lashana yells out after seeing Dawn running away from the area. How'd she know I was? Who am I kiddin'? Nothing about that girl makes any sense. She mutters before she starts to chase after Dawn. The two run through the forest as Lashana was close behind Dawn, but Dawn was starting to pull away due to the difference in speed and size. You'll never get me alive. Dawn yells as she runs from Lashana as fast as she could. Lashana then starts to shoot at her and actually aims directly at her, but Dawn once again shows that she was full of even more surprises. Without even looking, the aura reader manages to dodge all of Lashana's paintballs. From ducking to leaping out of the chute's flight path when Lashana shot at her head, to sidestepping away from body shots, to even performing graceful maneuvers that from a ballerina when Lashana shot at her legs, Dawn jumped and executed a perfect ballet spin midair before landing perfectly on her feet and kept up her sprint. Confessional, Lashana. Okay, that girl's never touched a piece of meat in her life. Lashana says while giving an incredibly confused look to the camera, wondering how Dawn was able to move like that. So how on earth does someone get moves like that from just eating leaves? End confessional. Nah, girl. But despite the incredible dodging skills Dawn displayed, Lashana refuses to let up and continues the chase while trying her best to somehow get a shot on her. You ain't getting away from me. She shouts before shooting at Dawn. Eep. Dawn lets out as she manages to dodge Lashana's shot. Sensing some nearby obstacles along the way, and knowing that they'd cost her, Dawn puts her hands around her mouth and takes a deep breath before. Creatures of Mother Nature, please lend me your aid. She calls out. Lashana raises her brow at Dawn's sudden call out, but her eyes soon widen when she hears birds chirping and looks up to see a flock of birds both big and small, flying toward her and all fly around her eyes, causing her to stop and sway at them so they don't peck out her eyes. Dawn sees this and takes the opportunity to run. Lashana manages to get the birds away from her face as she sees Dawn running away. Oh, you're not getting away from me that easy. Get back here. Lashana yells as she chases after Dawn while swatting the birds away from her eyes. With Lindsay. Owen and Lashana weren't the only gopher having a pretty rotten time in the challenge. Lindsay herself wasn't having too much fun. The blonde bombshell was walking through the woods with a frown and a bag of chips under her arm. She had barely escaped Chef's wrath after he unexpectedly returned to the mess hall after his swim, and she was forced to run with the bag of chips while Chef was throwing various knives at her. After barely escaping with her head still on her hot body, Lindsay was in a foul mood as she continued walking toward where Heather and Beth were last seen. Something was on the ground in front of her, and by the time she stepped onto the pile, it was too late for her to notice it as a rope suddenly snaps and wraps around her right ankle, with Lindsay feeling it before she finds herself getting lifted off the ground and she finds herself hanging from a tree branch by her ankle upside down. Ah! Lindsay yelps in fright and surprise after seeing she was upside down while her cap and googles fall off and flop to the ground. She looks up at herself and sees her skirt was revealing her panties. She becomes flustered as she grabs her skirts and lifts it up, hiding her undies after dropping her gun and the bag of chips. Thankfully, due to trees around the area, Lindsay's panties weren't revealed to the world. What's going on? What is this? She yells, wondering just what was going on. What the? Lindsay. A voice speaks, making Lindsay to look around for the owner of the voice as she then sees someone drop from a tree nearby and start walking towards her. This person did look familiar to Lindsay, but she couldn't make out as to who it was due to her being upside down, but she'd soon know who this was as the person was now in front of her. Lindsay, are you okay? The person asks and Lindsay looks up at them and notices one noticeable feature on this person. Their blonde/red hair, spiky hair. Nate? Lindsay asks as she sees Naruto in front of her, looking down at her as he had black paint on his face, acting as camo or war paint. Yeah, it's me. And my name's Naruto. It was Naruto, as he corrected Lindsay on his name. He looks down at her face, trying not to stare at her huge rack that was edging to pop out from her top due to gravity. What are you doing here? I thought you'd be hunting deer like I am. He asks, wondering why was she here. I wish I was, but LTHR told me to go and find her a bag of chips, so I went to get the chips from the mess hall, and I nearly got my pretty head cut off by Chef and his scary knives. Lindsay says, and Naruto blinks for a few moments, processing the information Lindsay has told him. Heather sent you to go get chips? During a challenge where one person from the losing team is going home? Naruto asks, thinking what Lindsay said was incorrect. But Lindsay just nods. Yeah. Lindsay says, and Naruto blinks again as he only has one thing to say. That is, very stupid of her. Naruto says, finding the logic behind Heather's request. Really? Lindsay asks, looking at Naruto, who nods. Yes, it is. Why would she send one of the 4 hunters your team has? That's setting the team up to fail. Naruto says, and Lindsay thinks about it and realizes he was right. Oh. Lindsay says. The two go silent as Naruto sees Lindsay's face start to turn red, and realizes the blood was starting to rush to her head. Let me get you down from that. Naruto says. He picks her up and holds her in his arms while he pulls out a knife he borrowed from Duncan's stuff and cuts the rope from Lindsay's ankle, freeing her. He looks at Lindsay. You okay? He asks, and he wasn't aware that their faces were close, and Lindsay blushes, seeing they were inches apart from each other. Why yes, thank you. Lindsay stutters and Naruto sets her down to her feet. No problem. Naruto says. Lindsay nodded in thanks as she started correcting her skirt and her top as Naruto thought of a question. Lindsay, can I ask you something? He asks, gaining his fellow blonde's attention. Sure. Lindsay says, and she faces him. What is your relationship with Heather? Naruto asks, and his question actually makes Lindsay think about it for a bit before answering. Oh, she's my friend. And we're in an alliance, with Beth in it too. Lindsay answers wholeheartedly, but Naruto wasn't convinced. Is she really? Naruto asks, and Lindsay looks at him with confusion on her face. Huh? Lindsay utters. Lindsay, from what I've seen and heard. The alliance you three have isn't an alliance, it's a dictatorship with Heather as the boss while you and Beth are her servants. An alliance is a partnership between the members of that alliance, all working together and relying on each other, but the one you're in with Heather isn't. All she's done is bossing you guys around, and she does nothing to help you two out in this alliance. Does that sound like a partnership to you? Naruto asks, and Lindsay frowns a little while shaking her head. No. But Lindsay was ready to say something, but she stopped when Naruto put his hand on her shoulder and looked at her with a serious expression, seeing that she'd never seen before from him. Listen, Lindsay, I know you're a good person and have a heart of gold, but you have to prioritize yourself and not over Heather, since she could throw you under the bus just to save herself, just to stay in the game. I know you think she's your friend, but you have to look after yourself and watch out for Heather. There's no telling what she wouldn't do just to win. Naruto says, and Lindsay's frown deepens as she looks away from Naruto and down to the ground, in deep thought on Naruto's words, looking at them and looking back at how Heather has been treating her throughout their alliance. Lindsay doesn't say anything as she was thinking, and Naruto sighs before he places his hand on her chin and lifts her head toward him as he looks at her with a soft expression. Look, I'm not trying to make you doubt or try to make you quit the alliance, Linz. I'm only looking out for you because I'm your friend too, and I don't want you to get hurt thanks to someone else's selfishness. Besides, us blondes gotta look out for each other, right? Naruto says, cracking a grin. Lindsay didn't say anything at first, but she soon giggled a little at the blonde joke. Why yeah, we sure do. She says. Naruto looks at her for a bit before he pats her on the head. I got to go back to hunting, I'll see you later. Naruto says before letting go of Lindsay's head, much to her disappointment as he walks over to the tree he was in, but when he was about to climb it, he turns back to Lindsay and smiles at her. Good luck hunting, he says before turning back to the tree and quickly climbs it before disappearing in the leaves. Bye Nate. Lindsay says, waving goodbye to Naruto while getting his name wrong again, as she then picks up her gun and the bag of chips and starts walking to where Heather and Beth were, not aware that the bag of chips had a hole at the bottom and chips begun to fall out. She continues to walk while thinking about Naruto's statement about her alliance with Heather. Was she bossy to Beth and her? Yes, she was. Was she a bit mean? Yes, she was. But that was what alliance leaders were, weren't they? There you are. Lindsay was brought out of her thoughts at the sound of someone talking to her, and she looked to see Heather, who was still sitting on her stump, with the queen bee glaring impatiently at her while she ate the berries Beth had collected. "About time you showed up. What took you so long?" Heather asks. Lindsay doesn't answer her question and instead walks over to her friend with the bag of chips in hand. "Here you go." Lindsay says. She holds the chip bag out for Heather. "I had to go through a lot to get those." Heather drops the berries out of her hands to the floor, much to the dismay of Beth, who spent a long time picking those out from thorny bushes, as the mean queen rudely swipes the chips away from Lindsay before looking inside. "There's like 25 chips left." Heather complained about the amount that remained in the bag after spotting the hole at the bottom of the bag before sniffing them and recoiling in disgust. "And they're barbecue. Go exchange them for dill pickle." Heather throws the bag of chips on the ground in front of Lindsay and crosses her arms, expecting Beth to follow her orders. Lindsay was about to reach down to collect the chip bag, but was stopped when a hand gently grabbed her wrist. She looks up and to her surprise, she sees Beth glaring at Heather. "No." Beth says loudly for all to hear. Heather and Lindsay gasp. The former couldn't believe it. Her underling had the nerve to say no. To her. That was not acceptable at all. "What did you just say?" Heather growls as she glares right at Beth. "I said, no. She doesn't have to go and get herself killed for your own expense. And I won't do it either. Since you don't appreciate all the things we've done. We won't do it anymore." Beth says with a hiss in her tone, pouring the hidden frustration she's been holding back for a while out onto Heather. Heather instantly shoots from her stump and glares at Beth. "Take it back." Heather immediately orders Beth, but the braces-wearing girl wasn't backing down. "No." Beth barks back to Heather, and Heather could feel her anger increase. "Take it back. Now." Heather drags out, her glare intensifies while Beth remains unfazed. "Make me." Beth yells at the mean queen. As the pair glared at one another and Lindsay watched from the sideline, none of the three noticed a hand sticking out of a bush from behind Lindsay and grabbed the discarded bag of chip. Back with the hunter. Owen could be seen back on dry land with his entire body dripping with water as he was drying his hunter cap. He was wet, tired, cold, and most likely hungry. But still, determined to catch his prey. You can leave the hunter with less ammo than he thought he had. You can throw him over a cliff. You can even leave him with a case of tow crabs. Owen says while emptying a small crab out of his shoe before throwing his shoe to the ground and raising his arms. But you cannot break his spirit. Russell. Owen's eyes immediately widen before locking onto an area where he heard Russell. Quickly hiding in bushes, Owen's eyes lock onto what he saw. The base deer Eva walking all by herself. Fresh meat. Owen smirks while rubbing his hands together upon spotting his next hunt. So as quietly as he could, Owen stalked Eva while he looked at his paintball gun and looked into the pallet compartment to see how much ammo he had left. He saw he had one paintball left and he knew he had to make it count to put his team on the board. So the hunter keeps his distance while keeping a close eye on the female jock and his movements. Soon enough, Owen finds himself close enough to Eva and he climbs up a tree before looking down at Eva as she stops to take a drink from the river, and he sees this as the perfect vantage point for the shot. This will be the shot of the day. Owen quietly narrates as he watches Eva bend down and take a sip of water with her hands. With one paintball, hunter and prey's mutual destinies will be fulfilled. He quietly narrates as he takes aim of Eva and prepares to fire when PFFFFFFTTTTT. Owen flinches a bit as he finds himself unable to contain a fart. Eva quickly hears this and takes a whiff of the air before gagging at the smell. Beans. Eva mutters before realizing what that means. She looked up at the tree and had a feeling who she thought it was, hiding in the tree. So, she simply kicks the tree with enough force that caused the tree to shake violently and Owen falls out of the tree and lands face first into the ground as his gun falls beside him. The hunter groans as he lifts his head and sees his gun. He goes to reach for it but a foot is placed onto the gun and Owen looks up to see Eva, looking at him with crossed arms. "Nice try, Fartzilla. You almost had me there," Eva says, looking at Owen with an impressed expression, since she didn't hear him sneaking up on her. She had to respect that to be able to quietly move away for a guy his size, but that's where her respect for him ends as she glares at him. "But you made me smell your fart. So, I believe I should return that, with some, psychical payments. Don't you think?" She asks, cracking a menacing smile while she cracks her knuckles. Owen gulps heavily while letting out one more fart as the camera pans over the forest and the sounds of skin hitting another a large amount of skin, and the cries of pain could be heard. Oh, and Owen's going to be feeling that beatdown for a while. Chris says, watching and hearing the beatdown on his TV while he munches on his popcorn. Confession: Cody. It was easy to get those chips. With them auguring with one another, they had no idea I was even close by and heard the whole thing. Cody says, looking back to the camera with a confident smile as he still had the injuries he had from before. Plus, I felt I had this challenge in the bag. But, that was when I ran into her. End confessional. Cody sighs in satisfaction as he takes a bite from the bag of chips he got from Lindsay. Aya gotta love barbecue. Cody sighs in satisfaction as he takes another chip from the bag. Just as he was about to eat the chip, he bumps into something, causing him to yelp out and fall to the ground on his butt. He hisses out from the pain of the fall as he rubs. Ow, that hurt. A voice cries out and Cody looks at who was the owner of the voice and his eyes widen. Katie. Cody says, seeing the brown-skinned twin in front of him as Katie rubs her head before she stops and looks at Cody. Cody. Katie says, looking surprised to see him there. That was until she gasped before she quickly backed away from the gopher. What are you doing here? Wait, are you going to shoot me? She yells and Cody just blinks at her for a bit before he starts laughing. I don't think I can sense one, I'm a deer and two, you're the hunter. So, I should be asking that question. Cody says while pointing to Katie's discarded paintball gun. The Hispanic twin sees her gun on the floor and she blushes in embarrassment upon realizing her role. Oh, right. Katie utters. The two then fell silent as they didn't know what to say or do. Should they go to the cat and mouse game, or in this instant, the hunter and the hunted? And after a while of silence, Cody breaks it with a question. So, are you going to shoot me? Cody asks, and Katie looks at him for a bit before she starts grinning. I don't know, should I? Katie asks as she reaches for her gun and aims it at Cody. What do you have to offer to make me not do it? She asks and this causes Cody to panic mentally. He knows he can't get shot or else it was him on the chopping block. He had to use his big brain to think of something, and something fast. He spots the bag of chips lying on the floor next to him and he gradually reaches for them. I got a half-empty bag of barbecue chips. Cody asks while he holds the bag of chips at Katie who looks at it. Want some? He asks and Katie looks at him before looking down at the bag and back to him as she says her answer. Only if you're in the mood for some berries. I found a bush of blueberries a little way back the way I came. Want some? Katie asks and Cody thinks about the suggestion before he decides on it. Deal. Cody says with a smile and the two get up from the floor and make their way to the berry bush Katie suggested, unaware that they were being observed by an animal, or rather, a family of animals, lurking in a bush before this family starts stalking the two closely. Back with the chase. Get back here. Lashana shouts as she shoots at Dawn who leaps in the air, letting the paintball fly under her feet and hit a tree before landing on her feet while keeping her sprint. Currently, the girl with the tude was covered in mud and scratches, and her hair was a mess, unlike Dawn who was surprisingly still clean. Lashana was forced to go through everything in her path to get to Dawn, which included pits of mud, a small area of sharp rocks, and a few thorny plants and bushes. Lashana was tired, cold, dirty, and exhausted from all the running as she panted. How long can those birds carry her around? She lets out, feeling like she'd pass out at any given moment. But just then, Lashana's wish seems to true as Dawn stops at a circular clearing where a side of a cliff was in front of the nature lover, causing her to stop. The gopher hunter grins as she speeds up and was right behind Dawn where she stops and points her gun at the base deer. It's the end of the line for you, girl. Ain't got nowhere to run now, Lashana says in between breaths. Dawn was in a sticky situation. She knew she could dodge/evade all of Lashana's remaining shots, but she felt that the risk of being shot in the air was too great and she was trapped between a rock in a strong place. She had to think of something, and something fast. Dawn then senses a presence within the trees around the area, causing her to look behind Lashana, and her eyes widen in surprise as she sees something, and she realizes just where they were on the island. But before she could do anything else, a paintball pallet flies by her head and hits the cliffside behind her as she looks at the girl with attitude who was glaring at her. Got any final words to say before I put you out of your misery? Lashana asks, after finally catching her breath as she puts her thumb on the trigger. I do have something to say. Dawn hums a bit as she looks around while remaining surprisingly calm. She stops looking around and looks at Lashana and smiles at her. Allow me to introduce you to my friends. Lashana raises an eyebrow as Dawn suddenly lets out a high-pitched cry. The cry echoes throughout the area for a bit before settling down, and Lashana just looks around for any sign of this so-called friends Dawn mentioned but saw nothing. So she shrugs, thinking that Dawn was bluffing, and takes aim at the nature lover, ready to shoot at her when Lashana feels a chill go up her spine that urges her to look around the area. Just then, rustling could be heard coming from the entire border of the circular area before a head of animals started emerging from the woods and into the round open area. These particular animals were what caused Lashana to be utterly shocked beyond belief. The animals that emerged from the trees were deer. Actual deer. Beads of sweat start to form on Lashana's head as she sees bucks, doe, and fawn of different sizes emerge from the woods and surround her while all of them were glaring right at her. The gopher hunter gulps audibly as she tries to back away, only to walk backward into something. Slowly turning to see what was behind her, Lashana flinched as she looked to see an incredibly large buck with sharp antlers glaring down right at her. The buck releases steam from its nose right into Lashana's face, which makes the gopher quickly get away from it. Lashana then looked back to Dawn and saw the aura reader was looking right at her with crossed arms and narrowed eyes. Looking around nervously, Lashana knew that if she shot Dawn or any of the deer around her, she'd be in big trouble. So, seeing as she had no other way, Lashana tossed her gun aside and raised her hands in the air in defeat. Dawn smiles and nods as all the deer around them let out a cry and stomped their feet on the ground as their form of cheering. I swear, that girl's got to be a superhero or something. Chris mutters, after seeing what had happened during Dawn and Lashana's chase and the end of it, as he was once again surprised by Dawn's abilities and skills. Meanwhile, with Gwen and Trent. Gwen was seen walking through a section of the forest populated with tall trees and large amounts of bushes with cross arms. She was so done with this boring challenge since she hadn't encountered any of the base hunters. Which should be a good thing on its own, but that's not why she was done with the challenge. Gwen. Gwen, wait up. The reason why Gwen was fed up was Trent, who had been following her since the beginning of the challenge 3 hours ago. He had been pestering her to stop for a while now and she was at her wit's end. Please Gwen, just slow down. I have something to say to you. Trent yells, and Gwen's patience finally runs out as she stops and turns to Trent with a glare. What do you want? Gwen asks in a low tone as Trent stops in front of her and flinches from her tone. He rubs his arm while he tries to find the right words to say. I just wanted to talk to you. Trent says, and Gwen narrows her eyes. About what? Gwen asks. About us. Trent says, and Gwen raises an eyebrow at what he said while her glare doesn't drop. What about us? Gwen asks, and Trent looks at her. We haven't really talked to one another in the last 7 days now. Every time I try to talk to you, you just turn and walk away from me or just ignore me. I want to know, what's wrong? Trent asks, looking at Gwen with a concerned expression, and Gwen just intensifies her glare at the guitarist. Oh, I don't know. Maybe it's because it's due to the fact you left me buried alive after you ran from a mine and forgot about me even after you failed your challenge back in the Phobia Factor challenge, knowing fully well that is my worst fear. Rings any bells, Gwen asks, her glare deepens at Trent as the guitarist winches at the memory of his epic fail and at how he messed up with Gwen during the challenge. Oh, right. Trent says after a bit, feeling ashamed with himself. Gwen, I am truly sorry for that. I didn't think about your feelings at the time. My fight or flight reflex kicked in and it made me forget about you and your situation. But I'm not using that as an excuse, especially since another person remembered you being buried while they were facing their challenge. Trent says. He takes Gwen's hands and he looks at her with sincerity in his eyes. Gwen, I'm so sorry for leaving you in your worst moment. But I'll make it up to you. I promise I'll never leave you in the face of danger ever again. He says. Gwen didn't say anything but just looked at Trent and saw he was being sincere in his apology. She knew he meant it, but she still felt like she couldn't forgive him. What was she going to do? She sighs while dropping her glare as she looks at him. Look, Trent, I dash. Snap. A sudden snap causes Gwen to stop as the two look around the area. What was that? Gwen asks while Trent looks around. I don't know. Trent says. He looks around the area for anything that could have made that snap noise. Could have been an animal passing by. He asks and Gwen only shrugs. Maybe. Gwen says. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 7. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author Pixel's fanbook on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.